Document. Part 2 of Vin Diesel secretly walks into his own restaurant, stops cold when he hears a server crying. After their conversation in the storage room, Vin stayed with Emily for a few more minutes, offering words of encouragement and letting her know she wasn't alone. Though he didn't share his exact plan yet, he reassured her that things would work out somehow. Emily seemed to relax a little under his calming presence, though her eyes still carried the weight of everything she was dealing with. Before leaving the room, Vin promised to check on her later and quietly slipped back into the main dining area. He returned to his corner table, his mind racing with thoughts about how he could help. It wasn't just about solving Emily's immediate problems. It was about giving her and her brother a real chance at stability. Vin knew from experience that life could throw curveballs when you least expected them. He had faced his own share of struggles growing up, and while fame and success had brought him opportunities, they hadn't erased the lessons he learned during those tough times. Helping others navigate their hardships felt like a way to honor those experiences. As he sat there sipping water and observing the busy restaurant, Megan, the server who had taken his order earlier, approached him again. "Can I get you anything else?" she asked cheerfully, completely unaware of what had just happened in the back room. Vin shook his head but seized the opportunity to ask a question. "Actually," he said casually, glancing toward the kitchen, "how long has Emily been working here?" Megan's face lit up at the mention of her coworker. "Oh, Emily? She's been here for about 2 years now. She's one of our best servers. Always goes above and beyond for everyone. Honestly, I don't know what we'd do without her." Vin nodded thoughtfully. "Does she usually work this late?" "Yeah, she picks up extra shifts whenever she can," Megan replied. "She's really dedicated. I think she's saving up for something big, though she doesn't talk about it much." That confirmed what Vin already suspected. Emily was working tirelessly, not because she wanted to, but because she had to. Her sacrifices weren't just for herself, they were for her brother Jake. Vin thanked Megan for the information and let her return to her duties. As she walked away, he leaned back in his chair, thinking carefully about his next steps. Later that evening, after finishing his meal and making sure Emily was settled back into her routine, Vin decided it was time to take action. He left the restaurant quietly, stepping back onto the bustling streets of Chicago. The cool night air hit his face as he pulled out his phone and scrolled through his contacts. There was someone he trusted who could help him piece together a solution, a real estate agent named Alex Carter. Alex had helped Vin buy several properties over the years, including locations for his restaurants. They had developed a good working relationship built on mutual respect and professionalism. When Vin called, Alex answered almost immediately. "Hey Vin, what's up?" Alex's voice was friendly and upbeat. "Hey Alex, got a minute to talk business?" Vin asked, keeping his tone casual. "Of course, you name it, I'm all ears." Vin explained the situation briefly, leaving out specific names to protect Emily's privacy. "There's a house I want to look into purchasing," he said. "The owner is planning to sell, but I need to move fast. Can you find out more details for me?" Alex didn't hesitate. "Absolutely. Send me the address and I'll reach out to the seller right away. Do you have a budget in mind?" "For now, just make sure we secure it," Vin replied firmly. "Money isn't an issue. I just need it done discreetly." "You got it," Alex said. "I'll handle everything on my end. Anything else you need?" Vin paused for a moment, considering whether to mention the scholarship idea forming in his mind. "Yeah, actually, I might need your advice on setting up a fund for someone. Let's touch base tomorrow once you've made progress on the house." "Sounds good," Alex agreed. "I'll keep you updated." Hanging up the phone, Vin felt a small sense of relief wash over mind. Taking care of the house was only part of the equation, but it was a start. Now he needed to focus on Jake. Education was key to breaking cycles of hardship, and Vin wanted to ensure the young man had every opportunity to succeed. With that goal in mind, he sent a quick email to his financial advisor, outlining the basics of establishing a scholarship fund. He emphasized anonymity, knowing that pride mattered deeply to families like Emily's. The next day, Vin received a call from Alex early in the morning. "Good news. Alex began. "The seller is interested in selling quickly, and I've already drafted an offer. If you approve, we can close the deal within the week." "That's perfect," Vin said, feeling a surge of satisfaction. "Let's move forward." While Alex handled the paperwork, Vin turned his attention to another important task, learning more about Emily's role at the diner. He called Chris, the manager of Diesel's diner, and arranged to meet him later that afternoon. Chris was a middle-aged man with salt and pepper hair and a warm demeanor. He greeted Vin warmly when they met at a nearby cafe. "Vin, it's great to see you," Chris said, shaking his hand. "How can I help?" "I wanted to talk to you about one of your employees," Vin replied, taking a sip of coffee. "Emily Dawson. How does she perform on the job?" Chris smiled fondly. "Emily's fantastic. She's reliable, hardworking, and always willing to lend a hand. In fact, she often stays late to help clean up even when it's not her responsibility. The customers love her too. She has a way of making people feel welcome." Vin nodded, pleased with what he heard. "Has she ever mentioned any personal issues? Anything affecting her work?" Chris frowned slightly, thinking. "Not directly, but I've noticed she's been putting in a lot of overtime lately. I assumed it was because she needed the extra income, but I didn't pry. Is everything okay?" "It will be," Vin assured him. "Thanks for filling me in." After leaving the cafe, Vin spent the rest of the afternoon finalizing the details of his plan. By the end of the day, the pieces were falling into place. The house purchase was nearly complete, and the scholarship fund was being set up under a trust that would remain anonymous. All that was left was to tell Emily, but Vin wanted to wait until everything was ready before revealing anything. Meanwhile, back at the diner, Emily continued working tirelessly, unaware of the changes unfolding behind the scenes. She juggled tables with practiced ease, smiling brightly at customers even though her heart felt heavy. During a brief break, she stepped outside to clear her head, leaning against the brick wall of the building. The cool air helped calm her nerves, but her mind kept drifting back to the eviction notice and the uncertainty looming over her family's future. Just then, Megan joined her outside, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "Here," she said, handing one to Emily. "You looked like you could use a pick-me-up." Emily accepted the drink gratefully. "Thanks, Meg. I needed this." "You've been running yourself ragged lately," Megan observed, concern evident in her voice. "Is everything all right? You know you can talk to me if you need to." Emily hesitated, torn between keeping her struggles private and opening up to her friend. Finally, she sighed. "It's complicated. Things at home aren't great right now, but I'll figure it out." Megan placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "Whatever it is, you're stronger than you think. And you've got us. We're here for you." Emily managed a small smile, touched by Megan's kindness. For the first time in days, she felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe things wouldn't fall apart completely. Maybe, just maybe, she could find a way through. Unbeknownst to her, help was already on the way. End of document. Document. Part 1 of Vin Diesel secretly walks into his own restaurant, stops cold when he hears a server crying. The night was cool, with a soft breeze blowing through the streets of downtown Chicago. The city lights shimmered like stars against the dark sky, and the sidewalks were alive with people heading to dinner or catching up with friends after work. Among them, unnoticed by most, walked Vin Diesel. He wasn't dressed in flashy clothes or sunglasses that screamed celebrity. Instead, he wore a simple black hoodie pulled low over his head and a pair of jeans that helped him blend into the crowd. Tonight, he didn't want attention. He wanted to see how things were going at one of his restaurants without anyone knowing he was there. It was something he did from time to time, visit his businesses unannounced. He liked to check on the staff, watch how they handled customers, and make sure everything ran smoothly. For Vin, these visits weren't about power or control. They were about connection. Running a restaurant wasn't just about making money. It was about creating spaces where people could come together, share meals, and feel welcome. And tonight, he had chosen Diesel's Diner, a cozy spot known for its hearty burgers and friendly service. As he approached the entrance, Vin paused for a moment, glancing at the glowing sign above the door. It read Diesel's Diner in bold letters with a small tagline underneath. Good food, good vibes. He smiled faintly, remembering all the effort it took to get this place off the ground. Opening a restaurant wasn't easy, even for someone as successful as him. But seeing families laugh over plates of fries or couples sharing milkshakes made it worth every challenge. Pushing open the glass door, Vin stepped inside. The warmth of the diner greeted him immediately. The air smelled of grilled meat and freshly baked bread, and the hum of conversation filled the room. Tables were packed with customers, some laughing loudly, others chatting quietly. Servers moved quickly between tables, balancing trays loaded with food and drinks. Behind the counter, cooks worked efficiently, flipping burgers and tossing salads. Everything seemed to be running perfectly. Vin found an empty table tucked away in the corner near the kitchen. From here, he could observe the entire restaurant without drawing too much attention to himself. A young waitress with curly brown hair and a bright smile came over to take his order. Her name tag read, Megan. She greeted him warmly and handed him a menu, completely unaware of who he was. "I'll just have water for now," Vin said in a calm voice, giving her a polite nod. Megan nodded back and hurried off to fetch his drink. As she left, Vin leaned back in his chair, letting his eyes wander around the room. He watched as another server expertly juggled 3 plates at once, delivering them to a large family seated by the window. Nearby, a couple shared a dessert, their faces lit up with happiness. It was moments like these that reminded Vin why he loved owning restaurants. But then, something caught his ear. A sound so faint it almost went unnoticed. At first, he thought it might be the clatter of dishes or the buzz of voices blending together. But as he listened more closely, he realized it was different. It was muffled, almost hidden, but unmistakable. Someone was crying. Vin frowned slightly, turning his head toward the noise. It seemed to be coming from behind a door marked "Employees Only." Curiosity tugged at him. What could be happening back there? Was someone hurt? Or maybe having a hard day? Whatever it was, he couldn't ignore it. Quietly, he stood up and walked toward the door. When he reached it, he hesitated. Should he knock? Would whoever was inside appreciate his intrusion? After a brief moment of indecision, he decided to go ahead. He knocked softly on the doorframe, announcing his presence before stepping inside. The room beyond was small and dimly lit, with shelves stacked high with supplies and a single stool placed near the wall. Sitting on the stool was a young woman, her face buried in her hands. Her shoulders shook gently as tears streamed down her cheeks. She looked up suddenly, startled by the sound of his knock. Her wide, red-rimmed eyes met his, and for a second, she froze. Then recognition dawned on her face. "Oh my gosh. Mr. Diesel?" she stammered, quickly wiping her tears away with the back of her hand. I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to. I wasn't slacking off or anything." Vin raised a hand to stop her, offering a reassuring smile. "Hey, don't worry about that," he said gently. "Are you okay? Is everything all right? For a moment?" The young woman just stared at him, clearly unsure of what to say. Finally, she let out a shaky breath and nodded. "Yeah, no. Not really. But it's nothing you need to bother with." Vin tilted his head slightly, studying her expression. There was something genuine about her, something that told him she wasn't trying to put on a brave face for show. "Why don't you tell me anyway?" he suggested, his tone warm and encouraging. "Sometimes talking helps." The woman hesitated again, biting her lip as if weighing her options. Then, slowly, she began to speak. "My name's Emily," she said, her voice trembling. "And, well, I guess you could say life hasn't been great lately." Emily explained that she had been working long hours at the diner to support herself and her younger brother Jake. Their father had passed away recently after a long battle with cancer, leaving them both devastated. On top of dealing with their loss, Emily was struggling to keep up with bills and other responsibilities. Earlier that day, she had received an envelope containing eviction papers. Their landlord had decided to sell the house they grew up in, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. As she spoke, Vin listened intently, his heart aching for her. He could see the weight of her struggles etched into her face, the exhaustion, the sadness, the fear of losing everything she held dear. Yet despite it all, there was a strength in her words, a determination to keep moving forward no matter how hard things got. When Emily finished speaking, silence hung in the air for a moment. Vin looked at her, considering his next move. He knew he could help her easily, but he also knew that throwing money at a problem wasn't always the best solution. Still, he couldn't just walk away. Something about Emily's story resonated with him, reminding him of his own journey and the times when life felt impossible to navigate. "You're doing an amazing job holding it together," Vin said finally, breaking the silence. "Not everyone would handle something like this with such grace." Emily gave a weak laugh, shaking her head. "Grace? I don't know about that. Most days I feel like I'm barely keeping my head above water." "Well, sometimes just showing up is enough," Vin replied. "And you've been doing that for your brother, for your customers, for yourself. That takes courage." His words seemed to catch her off guard, and for the first time since he entered the room, a flicker of hope appeared in her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "That means a lot." Vin nodded, feeling a sense of purpose settle over him. This wasn't just a chance encounter, it was an opportunity to make a difference. And as he stood there in the dimly lit storage room listening to Emily's story, he knew exactly what he needed to do next. End of Document. Part 3 of Vin Diesel secretly walks into his own restaurant, stops cold when he hears a server crying. The next few days passed in a blur for Emily. She threw herself into her work at the diner, trying to distract herself from the looming eviction notice and the weight of her responsibilities. Every morning she woke up early, made breakfast for her brother Jake, and then headed straight to the restaurant. By the time her shift ended late in the evening, she was exhausted, but sleep didn't come easily. Her mind raced with worries about how she would keep their family together. Jake, on the other hand, tried his best to stay positive. He knew his sister was carrying the burden of their loss and their financial struggles, so he did what he could to lighten her load. He helped around the house, cooked dinner when she worked late, and even applied for part-time jobs online. But despite his efforts, Emily could see the sadness in his eyes. They both missed their father deeply, and the thought of losing their home felt like another cruel twist of fate. At Diesel's Diner, Emily continued to excel in her role as a server. Even though she was battling her own demons, she made sure every customer left happy. Her co-workers admired her resilience, though none of them fully understood the depth of her struggles. Megan often checked in on her during breaks, offering words of encouragement or simply sitting quietly beside her when Emily needed someone to lean on. Meanwhile, Vin Diesel was busy putting the final touches on his plan. The house purchase had gone through smoothly thanks to Alex Carter, who handled everything discreetly. The property was now under a trust fund that would allow Emily and Jake to live there rent-free indefinitely. Additionally, the scholarship fund for Jake was officially established, ensuring he wouldn't have to worry about tuition costs if he decided to pursue higher education. But Vin knew timing was crucial. He wanted to reveal everything to Emily in person, but he also didn't want to overwhelm her. For now, he stayed in the background, observing from afar and making sure all the pieces were perfectly aligned before stepping forward. One evening, as Emily clocked out after a long shift, Chris, the manager, called her over. "Hey, Emily," he said, his tone unusually serious. "Can I talk to you for a moment?" Emily froze, her heart sinking. Had she done something wrong? Was this about her recent emotional breakdown in the storage room? She followed Chris to his office, bracing herself for bad news. "Relax," Chris said with a reassuring smile as they sat down. "This isn't about your performance. You're doing great. Actually, I wanted to let you know that we've noticed how hard you've been working lately. Management is considering giving you a promotion to shift supervisor. It comes with better pay and more flexibility." Emily blinked, stunned. A promotion? Better pay? It sounded too good to be true. Are you serious? She stammered. Absolutely, Chris replied. You've earned it. We just need to finalize a few details, but I wanted to give you a heads up. Tears welled up in Emily's eyes, though this time they were tears of relief rather than despair. Thank you so much, she whispered. I don't know what to say. Chris waved off her gratitude. You deserve it. Now go home and get some rest. You've earned that too. As Emily walked back to her car, she felt a flicker of hope ignite within her. Maybe things weren't as hopeless as they seemed. With a potential promotion on the horizon, she might finally have a chance to catch her breath and figure out a way to deal with the eviction notice. Little did she know, Vin was watching from across the parking lot. He had arrived earlier to check on the progress of his plan, and had seen the entire exchange between Emily and Chris. Seeing the look of relief on her face filled him with quiet satisfaction. Helping others wasn't always about grand gestures. Sometimes it was about creating opportunities that allowed people to stand on their own 2 feet. The following day, Emily received a call from her landlord. Her stomach dropped as she answered the phone, expecting the worst. Instead, the landlord informed her that someone had purchased the house and intended to keep renting it out, at least for the foreseeable future. Confused but relieved, Emily thanked him and hung up, still unsure of what to make of the news. Later that evening, while serving tables at the diner, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that something unusual was happening. Customers kept glancing at her with knowing smiles, and her coworkers seemed unusually cheerful. Even Jake texted her randomly to ask how her day was going, which was odd since he rarely checked in during the week. By the time her shift ended, curiosity got the better of her. As she prepared to leave, Megan stopped her near the exit. Wait, there's one more thing, Megan said, grinning mischievously. Someone wants to see you. Before Emily could respond, Vin Diesel appeared from behind a corner. This time, he wasn't hiding. He approached her with a warm smile, his presence instantly drawing attention from everyone in the diner. For a moment, Emily just stood there speechless. Hi, Emily, Vin said gently. Do you mind if we talk for a minute? Emily nodded numbly, still processing the fact that the famous actor and owner of the diner was standing right in front of her. Vin led her to a quiet corner of the restaurant, away from prying eyes and ears. I wanted to tell you something important, Vin began, his voice calm and steady. First, I heard about your promotion. Congratulations. That's incredible news. Emily's cheeks flushed with embarrassment. Thank you. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. Well, you deserve it, Vin said firmly. But that's not why I'm here. I found out about your situation, the eviction notice, the struggles with your family, and I want to help. Emily's eyes widened in shock. What? How did you? It doesn't matter how I found out, Vin interrupted gently. What matters is that you and your brother shouldn't have to worry about losing your home. So I bought the house. You'll be able to stay there rent-free until Jake graduates. Emily stared at him, unable to believe what she was hearing. You did what? And there's more, Vin continued, ignoring her stunned expression. I set up a scholarship fund for Jake. If he decides to go to college or trade school, the money will cover all his expenses. No strings attached. Tears spilled down Emily's cheeks as she struggled to process everything. Why are you doing this? She asked, her voice trembling. I mean, I can't possibly repay you. Vin shook his head. That's not why I'm doing it. Life throws challenges at us that feel impossible to overcome. Sometimes a little support makes all the difference. Think of this as paying it forward. If you ever get the chance to help someone else in need, do it. That's all the repayment I ask for. For a long moment, Emily couldn't speak. Her chest tightened with emotions she couldn't put into words: gratitude, disbelief, and overwhelming relief. Finally, she managed to whisper, Thank you. Thank you so much. Vin smiled softly. You're welcome. Now go home and tell Jake the good news. Tomorrow's a new day. As Emily left the diner, her heart felt lighter than it had in months. Outside, the city lights twinkled like stars, casting a warm glow over the streets. For the first time, in a long time, She allowed herself to feel hopeful about the future. Things might not be perfect, but they were far from hopeless, and for now that was enough. Unbeknownst to her, Vin watched her walk away, a small smile playing on his lips. Helping Emily hadn't just changed her life. It had reminded him of why he chose to use his success for good. In a world full of chaos and uncertainty, kindness was a powerful force. And tonight, it had made all the difference. Document. Part 4 of Vin Diesel secretly walks into his own restaurant, stops cold when he hears a server crying. The next morning, Emily woke up feeling like she was living in a dream. The weight that had been crushing her for weeks seemed to have lifted, replaced by a sense of hope she hadn't felt in a long time. She lay in bed for a few extra minutes, replaying the events of the previous night over and over in her mind. Vin Diesel had not only saved their home, but also set up a scholarship fund for Jake. It was almost too much to believe. She glanced at the clock on her bedside table and realized it was already late. Jake would be up soon, and she needed to tell him the news. Taking a deep breath, Emily got out of bed and headed to the kitchen. As she prepared breakfast, she thought about how to break it to him without overwhelming him. How do you explain something so unexpected and life-changing? Jake walked into the kitchen just as she finished making pancakes. "Morning," he said groggily, rubbing his eyes. "Something smells good." Emily smiled, setting a plate in front of him. "It's your favorite. Eat up. I need to talk to you about something important." Jake raised an eyebrow, curiosity flickering across his face. "What's going on?" Emily hesitated for a moment, unsure where to start. Finally, she took a seat across from him and began explaining everything. She told him about the eviction notice, her fears of losing their home, and the conversation she'd had with Vin at the diner. Jake listened silently, his fork paused halfway to his mouth. "Wait, are you serious?" he asked when she finished. "He bought our house and set up a scholarship for me?" Emily nodded, tears welling up in her eyes again. "Yeah, I couldn't believe it either." Jake stared at her for a moment, then let out a laugh that turned into a sob. "This is insane," he said, shaking his head. "I mean, this is amazing, but why would he do all this for us?" "I don't know," Emily admitted. "But he said we should pay it forward someday. That's what matters most, to use this chance to help others when we can." For a while they sat in silence, both processing the enormity of what had happened. Then Jake reached across the table and grabbed Emily's hand. "We're going to be okay, aren't we?" Emily squeezed his hand tightly. "Yeah, we're going to be okay." Later that day, Emily returned to work at Diesel's diner, still trying to wrap her head around everything. Her co-workers greeted her warmly, though none of them knew the full story behind her newfound happiness. Megan noticed the change immediately and pulled her aside during a break. "You seem different today," Megan said, studying her closely. "Did something happen?" Emily debated whether to share the truth. In the end, she decided to keep it simple. "Let's just say things are looking up," she replied with a smile. "I'll tell you more later." Megan grinned. "Well, whatever it is, I'm happy for you." As Emily resumed her duties, she couldn't help but feel a renewed sense of purpose. The stress that had weighed her down for so long was gone, replaced by gratitude and determination. She threw herself into her work with even more energy than usual, determined to prove that Vin's trust in her wasn't misplaced. Meanwhile, unbeknownst to Emily, Jake was dealing with his own whirlwind of emotions. After finishing breakfast, he retreated to his room and opened his laptop. Over the past few weeks, he had been secretly applying for part-time jobs online, hoping to ease some of the financial burden on Emily. But now, with the scholarship secured, he wondered if he should reconsider his plans. As he scrolled through job listings, Jake's phone buzzed with a text message from a local coffee shop. They were offering him an interview for a barista position. Normally, he would have jumped at the opportunity, but now he wasn't sure. Should he focus on school instead, or take the job to save money for other expenses? Before he could make up his mind, there was a knock at his bedroom door. Emily peeked, her head in. "Hey, can I come in?" "Sure." Jake replied, closing his laptop. Emily sat down on the edge of his bed, looking at him with concern. Are you doing all right? This is a lot to process. I'm fine, Jake said quickly, though his voice betrayed a hint of uncertainty. Just thinking about stuff. Emily nodded knowingly. Like what? Jake hesitated before answering. There's this job offer I got, an interview at a coffee shop. I applied before all this happened, but now I'm not sure if I should go for it. With the scholarship and everything. Emily considered his words carefully. She didn't want to pressure him one way or another, but she also knew how hard he had worked to contribute to the family. Listen, she said finally. You've always wanted to be independent, and that hasn't changed. If taking the job makes you feel like you're helping, then go for it. Just don't forget to balance it with school. Jake smiled faintly. Thanks, Em. That helps. That evening, after Emily finished her shift at the diner, Vin stopped by again. This time he wasn't alone. Alex Carter, the real estate agent who had helped purchase the house, accompanied him. Together, they met Emily outside the restaurant to discuss the details of the arrangement. First off, congratulations again, Alex said warmly, handing Emily a folder containing documents related to the property. Everything is officially transferred under the trust. You and Jake are free to stay as long as you need. Emily flipped through the papers, her hands trembling slightly. I don't even know how to thank you both, she said softly. There's no need to thank us, Vin replied. Just focus on building a future for yourself and Jake. That's repayment enough. As they talked, Jake arrived unexpectedly. He had finished his interview at the coffee shop and decided to surprise Emily by meeting her after work. Seeing Vin and Alex standing with his sister, he froze, unsure of what to do. Jake, come here, Emily called, waving him over. There's someone I want you to meet. Introductions were made, and Vin explained the scholarship fund in greater detail. Jake listened intently, his expression shifting between awe and disbelief. When Vin finished speaking, Jake looked at him with wide eyes. Why are you doing all this for us? He asked bluntly. Vin chuckled softly. Because sometimes people need a little help to get back on their feet. Your sister works incredibly hard, and you clearly care about each other deeply. That's worth investing in. Jake swallowed hard, struggling to find the right words. Thank you, he managed to say. I won't let you down. I know you won't, Vin said with a reassuring smile. Over the next few days, life began to stabilize for Emily and Jake. The threat of eviction was gone, and the promise of financial support gave them both peace of mind. Emily embraced her new role as shift supervisor at the diner, using her position to mentor younger servers and improve the overall atmosphere of the restaurant. Her co-workers admired her leadership skills, and customers continued to praise her friendly demeanor. Jake, meanwhile, accepted the job at the coffee shop, balancing it with his schoolwork. Though he sometimes felt overwhelmed juggling responsibilities, the scholarship fund gave him the confidence to pursue his dreams without fear of failure. On weekends, he spent time volunteering at a community center, inspired by Vin's philosophy of paying it forward. Despite the positive changes, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that she owed Vin more than words could express. One evening, after closing up the diner, she approached Chris, the manager, with an idea. Chris, she said hesitantly, what if we used the restaurant to give back to the community? Like hosting fundraisers or donating meals to families in need? Chris raised an eyebrow, intrigued. That sounds like a great idea. Why the sudden inspiration? Emily shrugged, smiling faintly. Someone once told me that kindness creates ripples. I think it's time we started making some waves. Chris grinned. I'll talk to corporate and see what we can do. If anyone can pull this off, it's you. Weeks later, Diesel's Diner hosted its first charity event. A dinner, fundraiser for a local shelter. The turnout was incredible, with customers packing the restaurant and donating generously. Emily stood near the entrance, greeting guests and thanking them for their support. For the first time in months, she felt truly at peace. As the night wound down, Vin appeared unexpectedly, slipping in through the back door. He watched quietly from the sidelines as Emily interacted with patrons, her face glowing with pride and joy. When the crowd thinned, he approached her. "You've done an amazing job with this place," he said, gesturing to the bustling dining area. "I'm proud of you." Emily turned to him, her eyes shining with gratitude. "None of this would have been possible without you," she replied. "Thank you for everything." Vin shook his head. "You did the hard work. All I did was give you a push." They shared a quiet moment, the bond between them stronger than ever. Then Vin glanced around the room, taking in the laughter and chatter filling the air. "Looks like you're making those ripples I told you about," he said with a smile. Emily laughed softly. "Yeah, and maybe someday they'll turn into waves." With that, Vin stepped back into the shadows, disappearing as quietly as he had arrived. But his impact lingered, not just in Emily's life, but in the lives of everyone touched by her kindness. Document. Part 5 of Vin Diesel secretly walks into his own restaurant, stops cold when he hears a server crying. Months passed, and life for Emily and Jake began to settle into a rhythm they hadn't thought possible. The house felt like home again, filled with laughter and warmth despite the absence of their father. Emily threw herself into her work at Diesel's Diner, determined to honor Vin's generosity by making the restaurant a beacon of kindness in the community. Her idea of hosting charity events had taken off, and soon the diner became known, not just for its food, but also for its heart. The first fundraiser had been such a success that Emily decided to make it a monthly tradition. Each event focused on a different cause, feeding families in need, supporting local schools, or raising money for medical expenses. Customers who once came only for burgers and fries now returned because they felt connected to something bigger. Even Megan, Emily's coworker, joined in enthusiastically, helping organize bake sales and donation drives. Together, they created a space where people didn't just eat, they gave back. Jake, too, found his footing. With the scholarship fund secured, he no longer worried about how he'd afford college. Instead, he poured his energy into his studies and his job at the coffee shop. Balancing both wasn't easy, but he thrived under the challenge. On weekends, he continued volunteering at the community center, mentoring kids who reminded him of himself. A little lost, a little scared, but full of potential. Watching them grow gave him a sense of purpose he hadn't expected. Despite all the progress, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that she owed Vin more than words could express. She wanted to thank him properly, to show him how much his actions had changed their lives. But every time she considered reaching out, doubt crept in. Would he even want to hear from her? After all, he had done so much without asking for anything in return. One evening, as Emily closed up the diner after another busy day, Chris approached her with a smile. "Guess who's coming by tonight?" he asked teasingly. Emily froze. "You don't mean—" "Yep," Chris confirmed. "Vin called earlier, said he might stop in to check on things." Her heart raced. Vin hadn't visited since that fateful night when he revealed his plan to help her and Jake. Since then, he'd stayed mostly behind the scenes, letting them focus on rebuilding their lives. Now the thought of seeing him again filled her with a mix of excitement and nerves. Sure enough, a short while later, Vin walked through the door. He wasn't wearing his hoodie this time. Instead, he dressed casually in jeans and a leather jacket. His presence immediately drew attention from the few remaining customers, but he waved them off with a polite smile, heading straight for Emily. "Hey," he said warmly, giving her a quick hug. "How's everything going?" Emily blinked back, tears overwhelmed by his sudden appearance. It's amazing," she managed to say. "Better than I ever imagined." Vin nodded, looking around the restaurant with pride. "I can see that. This place has really come alive." "It's because of you," Emily said earnestly. "Everything we've done. We couldn't have done it without your help." Vin shook his head. "No, Emily. You did this. I just gave you the tools. The rest is all you." Before she could respond, Jake walked in, having finished his shift at the coffee shop. When he saw Vin, his eyes widened in surprise. Mr. Diesel, he exclaimed, hurrying over. I didn't know you were stopping by. I was in the neighborhood, Vin replied with a grin. Thought I'd see how things are going. Jake glanced at Emily, then back at Vin. Things are good. Really good. Thanks to you, Vin chuckled softly. Like I told your sister, you two are the ones doing the hard work. I'm just glad I could help. For a moment, none of them spoke. Then Emily cleared her throat, gesturing toward an empty booth. Do you mind if we sit down for a bit? There's something I want to say. Curious, Vin followed her to the booth with Jake sliding in beside him. Once they were settled, Emily took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts. I've been thinking a lot about what you said that night, she began. About paying it forward. At first, I wasn't sure how to do that. I mean, how do you repay someone for saving your life? But then I realized it's not about repaying you. It's about using what you gave us to make a difference for others. She paused, glancing at Jake before continuing. So that's what we've been trying to do. Whether it's through the fundraisers here at the diner or Jake volunteering at the community center, we're doing our best to spread the kindness you showed us. And I hope that's enough. Vin listened intently, his expression thoughtful. When she finished, he leaned back in the booth, smiling faintly. That's more than enough, he said quietly. Kindness doesn't end with one act. It grows. Every person you help will go on to help someone else. That's how change happens. Tears welled up in Emily's eyes, and Jake reached over to squeeze her hand. For a long moment, the three of them sat in silence, the weight of their shared journey hanging in the air. Eventually, Vin stood up, signaling that it was time for him to leave. Take care of yourselves, he said, shaking Jake's hand and hugging Emily once more. And keep doing what you're doing. The world needs more people like you. As he turned to go, Emily called out impulsively. Wait! Vin stopped and looked back at her. Yeah? Thank you, she said simply, her voice thick with emotion. For everything. He smiled, his eyes softening. Anytime. With that, he disappeared into the night, blending seamlessly into the crowd outside. Emily and Jake watched him go, neither speaking until his figure vanished from sight. Weeks turned into months, and life continued to improve for Emily and Jake. The diner thrived under Emily's leadership, becoming a cornerstone of the community. Families facing hardships found comfort in its walls, knowing they wouldn't be turned away. Jake excelled in school, earning top grades and dreaming of a future where he could give back even more. Though Vin never returned to the diner, his influence remained everywhere. Every meal served to someone in need, every fundraiser organized, and every volunteer recruited carried echoes of his generosity. Emily often thought about him, wondering where he was and what he was doing. But she knew one thing for certain. His actions had sparked a chain reaction that would ripple far beyond their small corner of Chicago. One evening, as Emily locked up the diner after a particularly successful charity event, Jake joined her outside. The streets were quiet, illuminated by the soft glow of streetlights. You think we'll ever see him again? Jake asked, breaking the silence. Emily shrugged, smiling faintly. Maybe. Maybe not. But does it matter? What he did for us isn't just about him. It's about what we choose to do next. Jake nodded, understanding. Yeah, and we're doing okay, right? Emily laughed softly, wrapping an arm around his shoulders. We're doing better than okay. Together they walked home, the city lights twinkling above them like stars. Life wasn't perfect, it never would be, but it was theirs. And for the first time in a long time, they felt ready to face whatever came next. In the distance, unnoticed by either of them, Vin stood on a street corner, watching as they disappeared into the night. He smiled to himself, knowing he had made the right decision. Helping others wasn't about recognition or reward. It was about giving people the chance to rewrite their stories. And in doing so, he had found a piece of himself he hadn't realized was missing. As he turned to leave, blending into the shadows once more, Vin felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness left the biggest impact. And tonight, that truth shone brighter than ever.